travel back a few years ago. Me and Ryan are sitting in a local coffee shop having a conversation after one of our local firehouse sermons that we run through our local Fools chapter. And we got to talking about words and language and how they matter. Words matter. And somehow the word paramilitary came up, and it was like satellites were linking up. The light bulbs went off, and me and Ryan were spouting off ideas back and forth, and we started talking about more or less our life experiences. I'm as a civilian, his military and Marine Corps experience. And I traveled back to a time when I was starting in the fire service, and right before that I was kind of lost. I graduated college, didn't know what I was going to do. Was it going to be the military? Was it going to be to continue these 5 random jobs that I'm doing just to put food on the table? I entered the fire service, and I kept hearing this word, paramilitary. We're a paramilitary organization. The fire service is paramilitary. I'm like, yes! This is going to be great. I get to serve here at home, and I get to grow up in the fire service and learn these lessons that I see embodied by my friends and my family that have joined the military. Discipline, attention to detail, leadership, mentorship, and a myriad of others. But it didn't take long until right after that fact I'm hearing, who's the number one thing on the fire ground? You are. The firefighter is. We have to be safe. And immediately, like much of my life, I'm confused. Well, it doesn't make sense. Fast forward several years, going through a different fire academy, different part of the country, now with my buddy Ryan. And it's a little more stringent, a little bit more attention to the uniform. We're doing roll call. We're on the line. We're saluting, drilling, marching. And I thought, okay, now is when this is going to happen. These are the things that I saw as what paramilitary meant. But then I started hearing the same thing. Well, who's number one on the fire ground? The firefighter is. We have to be safe. And again, confusion sets in. I don't get it. So don't get me wrong. I'm thinking at this point that I entered into this relationship with this word with unrealistic expectations. Okay? My knowledge of the military at this point was stories from friends and family and terrible television and movies. Okay? So, but even with all that, I felt like possibly I was being sold a bill of goods. I just didn't know why.
So a bill of goods, I can't say I was sold a bill of goods as much as I just put a definition with what paramilitary meant. And I definitely manifested this own definition. And one of the things I kind of expected was that the fire service only attracted a certain type of individual, a certain person. And this person was high action, low emotion, efficient, proficient, professional. Right? And it wasn't until I started my career I realized that the women and men that make up the fire service come from all slices of life. And that professional person I thought that attracted it is built. Just like it's built in the military, it's built early on in your fire service career. And one of the things that paralleled to the military, when I got to the academy and I started my rookie year, they really put a lot of credence on how your uniform looked. Your boots were shined, gig lines straight, was your uniform pressed, with the toilet paper rolls filled in the stalls, how the toilets cleaned, coffee made, was it good, right? They put a lot of credence on these things. And I remember back to boot camp and my early start in the military service. And the same credence was put on that uniform. Except that uniform had a why behind it. And this why came with pride. I wore that uniform with pride because of the position I was holding, right? And all these small mundane responsibilities, whether you're a rookie in the fire service or you're new in the military, it was your responsibility. It was the task that was given to you. And it was instilled in me really early in the military, and I carried it on to the fire service, that these small tasks weren't for nothing. They meant something. This was an opportunity to be excellent. It's an opportunity to take ownership of these small areas, whether it was having polished boots and a good-looking uniform, or, hey, that is the best toilet I've seen, right? Like, these were my tasks, and this is where I was going to put my pride and put my best work out there. Now, In the military, that carries on. That carries on to every job you do, right? It builds off each other. And when they teach you the pride in the uniform, that carries on to pride in the way your rifle looks. That rifle that's going to save your life in a firefight, that makes sure that it functions and works properly, right? How clean that rifle is. When I transition back into my thoughts on the fire service, the same credence put on our uniforms, the same credence put on how coffee tastes in the morning or how clean the bathroom is, wasn't put on how well a rack line or pre-connect was pulled. It wasn't put on how your hose looked on your apparatus. Or the same way that the military focused on the effectiveness and cleanliness of your rifle wasn't put on how well maintained your tools were on the truck. Those same tools that you're going to use to potentially save your life. When I took a step back from it all and I started noticing these differences, the integrity of paramilitary and the fire service was lost for me.
Yeah, so it's interesting as we're transitioning forward, right? And we're thinking about this word paramilitary. Okay, and so what's the problem, right? We're two dudes up here, two nobodies from nowhere. We're saying we have all these problems and we had these expectations and they weren't met and we're disappointed, lo and behold, right? But I think if we truly mean that words have meaning and they should create action, and we're going to say the military is, or not the military, the fire service is paramilitary, we don't have a good definition for the fire service. If you were to look it up in the dictionary, it says like the military, or in the act of, or pertaining to being militant. That just doesn't seem to fit. I'm not an expert, but I think if we were to transfer this back and go back in time to perhaps the men and women that were serving our country, they were coming home from war, into their local fire departments, and they wanted some of that same mission focus, some of that same team focus and discipline right here at home. And over time, somehow we've been able to take, for lack of a better term, the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that's easy and tangible to hold on to, and we've made it our own, and we're using it in ways to make statements, and we're using it in ways to win arguments like, well, we're paramilitary, so we wear a uniform this way. Or because we're paramilitary, we have a rank structure, a chain of command, SOPs. All those things are important. But I tell you what, my bank has all that same stuff. And I guarantee you, if you go to Nowhere USA, walk into First National Bank, then I go, well, here at First National, we're a paramilitary organization. We're going to take care of your money. They're not going to say that, right? But they believe in the job and the service that they're providing, and that should be no different for us, right? Everything that we're saying should be followed by words. And more importantly, they should be followed with the lessons in the reasons why.
So as we talk about why, and I think that's the problem, Zach. I think that's why it's, I think it's not so much why is it important. I think it's what is our why. And we have to first be willing to say that we are not number one on the fire ground. Right? We are not the most important thing on the fire ground. They are the most important thing on the fire ground, and they are the people we swore to protect. Right? They are the reason we exist. They're the reason why the fire service is here. So our actions have to reflect them. Because the expectation, and there's been many presenters up here today talking about the expectation of the public we serve. And everything comes down to their reality, right? They don't care how many fires we've made that year or if that's their second one that day. They don't care if we're coming to the scene and we're using Recio and slicers and whatever flavor of the month acronym the fire service has come out with. They don't care. The only thing they care about is the moment that 911 is called, we're there within 5 seconds. The moment that air brake is hit, that we have a line on the ground, a rescue being made, and the fire is out all simultaneously within 5 seconds. And these are all skewed times, right? These are skewed numbers into their reality. Right? The victims and the people watching these scenes unfold have a different perception of what we do. But the expectation they have on our preparedness, on our skills, and how they translate into action is valid. Right? That is a valid perception that they have, an expectation they have of us. And so how do we get to this point? How do we fix this mistrust from the chiefs in the fire service to the lowest level in the fire service, this mistrust that we have? How do we fix this to build leadership within our ranks? We first have to look at how we're promoting people, right? Leadership isn't something that is granted. It can't be something given, and it sure as heck isn't a rank you're wearing. You're not going to learn it in a day's class or a week's course. We have to take a look at how we're putting the members of our department in positions of leadership. We can't continue to hand over a set of bugles to the highest score on a test and then saying, now lead, right? That's like dropping someone off in the middle of a woods with a compass and a map and saying, now navigate, but you've never taught them how to read a compass. Leadership is developed. It's a skill that is learned and practiced and purchased through sweat equity. And that's the bottom line. We have to have these honest conversations amongst our members of the firehouse, our brothers. And these honest conversations can't have the feelings attached to them and the egos attached to them. We have to evaluate each other on what we're doing personally and what we're doing as a house, a company, a fire organization, and how it affects our mission. And that evaluation has to be just a simple peer evaluation. You're doing this right, we can do this better, and here's the plan we're going to do to get where we need to be. And that evaluation needs to be consistent with a clear expectation and standard of what is being asked to be accomplished.
Yeah, so when we're talking about this evaluation that Ryan's talking about, I think it's important that that evaluation is owned from the top down, and everything about that evaluation is why and how you are physically leading us toward mission success or keeping us from mission success, right? If me and Ryan work on the same company, it has to be an honest conversation, and we can't be or get the same ranks or the same scores, right? He has strengths that I don't have, and I have weaknesses that he doesn't have. That evaluation has to be honest. It has to start from a place of, this is what I'm going to evaluate you on. And what I'm going to evaluate you on is your ability to help the team achieve mission success. Okay? And more importantly, that has to be owned from the top down. Now, whether your top is your battalion chief, the chief of the department, whoever it is, it has to be owned from the top down. This is why this is important. Okay? And when we take that why and we know that it's owned from the top down and everyone around us is really starting more or less holding each other accountable and building each other up, and when I don't achieve high marks, there's a way for the organization to say, this is how we're going to get you here. Okay, there's an inspiration there that more people care more about me actually being good at the job and me being able to go out and provide a service than they do about their cell phones. Okay, or anything that comes along with it. And when we have that inspiration, there's a pride in being part of something much larger than ourselves, right? That the things we're doing are not for me, but it's for the folks that can no longer put the uniform on.
So Zach talked about inspiration, and inspiration is a really powerful tool as formal or informal leaders they have. They have it in their back pocket. And we talk about mission a lot. We've heard that word a lot today. We've heard the word them. And I like that we hear it a lot. I think it's important that we continue to talk about our beliefs and our causes and our mission. It's posted up on every firehouse in our organization, right? Because if our mission is the same from top to bottom, from the top chief of the department all the way to the rookiest firefighter, then we're on the same page and that trust can now start being rebuilt. right? And when we have this, when we have these beliefs being talked about, people who believe the same thing will start following you, right? And your beliefs and your cause and your mission, they'll make that their belief and their cause and their mission. But if we continue to hire people to just do a job, that's what they'll do. They'll do a job and they'll collect a paycheck and they'll go home. And I'm going to tell you all about an example I heard probably about 7 or 8 months ago. And in the 20th century, a guy by the name Samuel Langley, he pretty much had what we would consider the recipe for success. All right? He was backed by the War Department. He was well connected in Harvard. He had literally the best minds money could buy. The New York Times followed him everywhere. Right? But we've never heard of Samuel Langley in this room, or few have, right? Because a few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, were the Wright brothers. And they had none of these things that we would have considered the recipe for success. They had no money. Not a single person amongst them on this team had a college education, and no one knew who they were. Newspapers could care less who these guys were. Right? They just were flying airplanes up in the air and straight into the ground. But they had a cause. They had a mission. Right? They talked about their beliefs. The Wright brothers inspired this group of guys to follow them on this mission to change the world. Right? Samuel Langley, he was motivated by fame and by fortune. And to prove this, that him and his team were motivated by the wrong things, is the moment the Wright brothers took flight, Samuel Langley quit. Instead of taking his resources and improving upon this incredible invention that was once his mission, he quit. Inspire your people. People don't buy into what you do, they buy why you do it. We have to inspire our people.
At the end of the day, you know, who are we? We're two nobodies from nowhere. I've said it quite a bit today, right? We don't have all the answers. And in fact, we have more questions than we have answers. And we're standing up here saying we need more. And there are probably departments and companies and organizations in this country and around the world that are knocking it out of the park. But what we're asking is that you help us take this conversation and make it a bigger conversation. Let us in on where you're nailing it. Let us in on your failures so that we can learn. Instead of us just continually beating our heads against the wall saying we can do better.
Let's just drop this word paramilitary. Let's just be the fire service. We don't need to be attached to the military, although I'm proud to come from the military, but we're the fire service. There are some things that are going to parallel the military because a lot of the members in our department, a lot of the leadership that we've taken comes from there. But let's be the fire service. Let's take back the identity that people just look at this symbol and believe in this symbol, and let's be out in the public, pulling lines, showing them why they give us this blind trust, why they're willing to just hand us over their kid at their worst, weakest moment, and trust us that we have kept up with our education, with our skills and training. Wherever this conversation takes you, when you go back home into the organization, just remember one thing. When you walk into the firehouse, you're on a mission. And the most important tool you can take into battle is a reason why. I'm Ryan Endicott.
Zach King.
Thank you all.